All right, what's going on, y'all? So today I'm going to talk to you about how I actually lost muscle while on steroids. So this last contest prep, the prep that I did to get ready for the Texas Pro, it was about a 4-month cut. It definitely did not go perfectly, not how I wanted it to go, and I learned a lot of lessons in the process. And these lessons can help you whether you're just doing a regular cut or whether you're actually getting ready for a show and you're doing a contest prep, because you absolutely can lose muscle while on steroids. And this is a big misconception I'm seeing going around now. Is that you can just cut pretty hard, and as long as you're running steroids, you're not going to lose muscle. If you do things wrong and you do things how I did this last contest prep, you absolutely can lose actual muscle tissue in the process. So at the peak of my bulk, I started the cut on March 20th, and at the peak of my bulk on March 20th, I was 253 pounds. On July 17th, which was about 4 weeks out from the show, I was already down to 194 pounds. So that's almost a 60-pound drop in less than 4 months. And while I had fat on me and quite a bit of water at the 253, it definitely was not a sloppy 253, and I definitely didn't need to drop 60 pounds to get into contest shape. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about the lessons I learned through this process. Some of it has to do with diet and some of it has to do with training. That way you guys don't lose muscle tissue when you guys are doing a cut. So right off the bat, when we started the cut, we dropped calories pretty aggressively right off the bat. Now, this is something that I think for most people, you can go ahead and do. When you start a cut, you can be somewhat aggressive with it right in the beginning. You've got, fat reserves. You can go ahead and drop things pretty quickly, but you don't want to go ahead and drop an insane amount. Throughout the entirety of the cut, I was losing at least 4 pounds per week. There's only a couple weeks that I lost about 3 pounds, but pretty much every week to week, I was losing 4 pounds plus per week. Now, from 5 weeks out to 4 weeks out, so I was already very shredded. And if you guys are following me on Instagram at this point, I was very shredded at this point. I had a 7-pound drop. Now, if you have a 7-pound drop when you're that shredded, that deep into a contest prep, that's not just fat at that point. You are cutting into muscle tissue. Now, the big reason that I knew I was actually cutting into muscle tissue is you are going to have a bit of a strength drop as you cut. You should expect that you're going to have a little bit of a performance drop, but that's what you want to go ahead and limit while you're cutting. A lot of people think that, as long as they just go ahead and they still have some intensity in the gym, they still have volume in place, if they are running steroids, they're going to go ahead and keep the muscle tissue. That is not the case. I've been a follower of people like John Jewett and several others for a while that they are very aggressive with their cuts, and they can go on very low calories. For a lot of people out there, your metabolism is just going to be too high that that's not really the case. And you need to go ahead and employ some other diet strategies in there. So on that 7-pound drop from 5 weeks out to 4 weeks out, I was dropping literally a pound or literally a plate on several of my movements in the gym. So it wasn't just like I was, having 2 reps short or, needing to drop 5 or 10 pounds on a movement. I was dropping literally 45 plus pounds on several of my movements. That's a big indicator that you are losing quite a bit of muscle tissue. One thing that we did is not only did we cut in the beginning very aggressively, but we kept it there. I had no refeeds literally from the start of the cut all the way until that big drop from 5 weeks out to 4 weeks out. And that's when I knew that I needed to go ahead and have something in place to allow me to get some performance back. So that would be my first thing is, for a lot of you out there, if you are doing a pretty aggressive cut to where, you drop your calories very hard, you're going to need to have regular refeeds or preferably carb cycle. A lot of you out there are going to be able to cut very efficiently carb cycling, and this is going to keep your performance in place. So you might have, say 3 low days and then a 1 high day. And the high day doesn't even need to be super aggressive, but it should allow you to recover some of your glycogen stores to go ahead and allow you to keep some of the performance in the gym. When you're cutting, especially trying to get to ultra shredded levels, you're going to need to go ahead and get really flat. It just comes with it. And, a lot of bodybuilders, we hate seeing ourselves flat. This can really affect you mentally on thinking you are cutting into muscle tissue when you aren't, but you need to go ahead and get flat. Big saying out there is flat kills fat. But at some point, if you're flat too long, you're going to start going catabolic. And that's where you're going to go ahead and start losing muscle tissue. So that's what you want to prevent. So either A, go ahead and, have regular refeeds in there. And that doesn't mean, having a refeed every few days or, maybe even not even once a week. But they need to be in place to allow you to go ahead and still keep that performance in the gym, and to where you're not having massive weight drops week to week. So like I said, I was dropping 4+ pounds each week. That in my opinion is too much. Not only is that too much, but you shouldn't be continuing to step on the throttle and add more cardio or drop your calories if that's in place. And that's what we were doing is, even though I was having those 4 pound plus drops each week, we were still either increasing cardio or bringing down calories each week. So, my recommendation to you is if you are dropping weight, there's a good chance you don't need to change anything. Say, you've already got your cardio in place, you've already got, a pretty hard cut with your calories, you're already in a pretty big deficit. If you have a 2+ pound drop, 1 week, there's a good chance you don't need to go ahead and change that. And then the next week, if you have a stall out, that's when you would go ahead and make another change, increase cardio or bring down your calories even more. The other thing is, you might want to go ahead and use a carb cycling strategy. And that's a big way to, keep your metabolism going and allow you to still have that performance in the gym. Now, the other big reason that I believe I lost quite a bit of tissue during prep was the way my training was laid out. So originally when I was analyzing everything, I thought a big mistake I had was that I had a bro split. You guys have followed me for a while. I love push-pull leg splits. I love the frequency of that. But analyzing it now, I really don't think it was the bro split. It was the astronomical amount of volume I had in place. If you guys followed my prep cycle series, you know that, on chest day, I was having chest day by itself, and I had 7 movements with 3+ sets per movement. So, I would hit the first 4 movements hard with intensity, and the last 3 just ended up becoming junk volume. I really wasn't able to have that intensity in place, especially as I started getting deeper into the cut. So the biggest thing here is, if you are a lifter who's lifting with intensity, which I suggest, intensity and volume is somewhat on an inverse curve. So the more intensity you have, the less volume you're going to need, and vice versa. If you're a volume lifter and you're a lifter that likes getting, just going in there and lifting a ton of volume, getting a pump, you're not going to want to go ahead and have insane intensity, taking every single set to failure or pass failure with intensity extenders. So, if you're a lifter that likes having a lot of intensity, taking everything to failure, you're probably not going to need more than 3 to 4 movements per body part, even if you're running a bro split, if you have the volume laid out in place. So that's another big thing too, is don't have a bunch of junk volume that it's not doing you any good. It's actually going to be taking away from your physique. It's going to be tearing into your muscle, especially when you are deeply in a deficit. But those are the 2 big points I have for you. The biggest thing is that with the diet, if you're going to do an aggressive cut, the first thing is, if you're already dropping weight week to week, don't keep laying on the throttle and increasing cardio too aggressively or bring calories down even more. Allow yourself to stabilize somewhat before you just keep laying on the throttle even more. Don't be afraid of having regular refeeds in place or using a carb cycling strategy. This is going to keep you from going into that catabolic state. Now with this, you can be flat for quite a bit before you go ahead and start going catabolic. So don't be afraid of going flat. If you guys look through my Instagram, you can see that I was looking really good, even at a flat state. And then it was like 1 week, all of a sudden, I just started really losing a ton of size. And that was also in correlation to when I started having massive strength drops in the gym. That's another sign too, if as you're cutting, you're dropping, a couple reps here, a couple reps there, or you're just dropping, 5 pounds here, 5 pounds there, that's okay. It's when you have these massive strength drops week to week, that's a big sign that you're going pretty catabolic. That's what you want to look out for. But the big point here is I was on a prep cycle. So I was running, your typical steroids you run on, prep cycle, test, trend, masteron, and winstrol. And even with that wasn't doing anything for me to save my muscle tissue. I mean, granted, if I wasn't running any of those, I would have lost a lot more. But just because you have drugs in place does not mean you can go ahead and just completely drop out calories. This is, a big thing I've been seeing on one of Greg Doucette's videos lately. He talked about Sam Sulek. This kid's pretty insane. He's got an insane physique, insane size, and he does pretty aggressive cuts. And Greg Doucette was talking about how he's going to be dropping tissue if he keeps cutting this aggressively. And I saw several of the comments saying he's on steroids, there's no way he's going to lose muscle. You absolutely can. There's some people out there, and I think this all comes down to body type as well. If you're an ectomorph to a mesomorph, you need to be careful with how aggressive you cut. If you're more on the endomorphic side, you're probably going to be able to get away with cutting pretty aggressively, because you're going to need that to get to that really, really, really shredded point, just because your body's going to want to hold on to fat a little bit more. But for most people out there, you need to be pretty careful with how aggressive you cut if you are someone that does cut pretty aggressively, because just because you're on steroids is not going to keep you from losing muscle tissue. But that's my big point here today is, when you're doing your cuts, set them up right. Be monitoring both your physique in the mirror and on the scale week to week. If you're having massive weight drops each week, don't be laying on the throttle even more. And then with your training, try not to have a bunch of junk volume in place, because that's not going to do you any good. It's only going to raise fatigue, and that fatigue is going to put you in a hole that's going to cause you to go catabolic as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys got something out of it. If you did, please go ahead and smash that like button. Be happy, be positive, be powerful, and have a great rest of your day.